Oi is right. It's the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast presents the Fantasy Walkabout. And I see Billy over here is going, what? A walkabout on a Tuesday? I know. There was a brief power outage here where I am in the miserable place that is Winnipeg, Canada sometimes. And, you know, we had to postpone to tonight. And I know it's a bit late, but I want to thank people for coming and spending some time with us. Tomlie, it's a little bit later in the day for you over there. What time is it in tomorrow for you right now?
It's just after midday, just your 12:30 p.m. sort of business.
Oh boy, yeah, that's a bit of a difference. 9 hours. We're finally hashed that out. I'm gonna try to remember it, but I'm gonna forget it.
We're never gonna remember it.
Yeah. We're never gonna remember it. So this is episode 4 of the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast presents the Fantasy Walkabout. The first episode also partnered with the Dynasty Vipers Network over there on YouTube. So a shout out to them. We brought the main show over there last week, and this week we're bringing the Fantasy Walkabout. Pretty exciting stuff. So as I mentioned, this is episode 4, but this is part 3 of the Value Accumulation Project. We want to help people acquire and identify what true value is in fantasy football. The word value is thrown around in every conversation, in every draft. I can't believe how much value is on the board. I can't make this trade because there's so much value. We all know there's value at that round, at that position. With that, we're going off of largely the same ranks, unless you have weird ranks or like some affinity for ranking players for clicks. Then we're all basically kind of thinking the same way if you're playing with really sharp players. So that's not identifying true value, and that's what's important. Your team doesn't actually get better unless you're identifying true value. Now, we in previous episodes we talked about how to build your tiers and why we prefer doing tiers for everything, for drafting, for trading, why we don't like trade calculators, but how to handle talking trade calculators with another league mate so you don't lose out on that trade. We've talked Hollywood Titans up in here. What up, Hollywood? We've talked about how to identify value with Aegis, of identify value in the dead zone. We've talked about all these things. Today, we are really going to look into value identification. It's a very big part of fantasy. Obviously, there are some pretty generic ways of doing this, but we want to show you, at least tell you how our process works and how we apply it to attaining what we like to call, and you'll hear this a lot, true value, because that's the only way you are going to get real value. Again, everyone knows that, getting OBJ in the 8th is a value, but is it a true value? Like these are important. Dobbins in the 2nd, is it a value or is it a true value? These are very different things, especially post-draft, because everyone knows you don't win your league at the draft. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, how often, Tomlie, have you walked out of a draft and be like, I'm not doing anything. No waivers, no trades, nothing. I've got it in the bag.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you always hear you can't win the league at the draft. But I think you can lose it. Like, if you do it wrong, you can definitely lose at the draft, right? And that's what we're kind of talking about today, is trying to figure out, well, once you finish the draft, who did lose it, and then who can we actually go to acquire more value from?
Yes.
Because you've only got one opportunity, only one draft slot. Even if you trade within drafts, you've got chances to acquire value, but this is it. Where to see it, how to see it, what to do with it when you do see it. This is where we're headed.
And so having worked through how to organize your assets and how to turn them into value for yourself and then capitalize on those, we want to divide these opportunities into two sections. There's two sections. It's drafts and league trades. Now, you might think that that's obvious because it is. We want to talk through some examples on how to capitalize on draft value and how to commence trade negotiations. That is a very big thing. Learning how to walk into a trade negotiation, and we talked about this last week on how to just not be completely dismissive. Walking into a trade negotiations, your first message has to be part of the plan. Where do you want to start with this, Tomlie, in the first steps in value identification?
So I think the key thing, if there's one thing you remember from this show, and the one thing you take away, is you need to understand and know what your league's about and who your league mates are. Because we talk about true value. One of the reasons that the term value is so broad and why it doesn't work across the board is because everyone's valuations are different, right? So therefore, true value is what is the value of that player or those assets within the league you're in. Right? Now, scoring changes it. There's a bunch of different factors that all will impact and affect it. But the key is to know what those factors are. And then the more you're involved in the league, the longer it goes, to know the teammates better, because they are also relevant factors to what your chances of acquiring true value are. And it changes year to year. And it's probably the most interesting part of the off-season process, is getting to know better and better who your league mates are and what's going on within that league.
Right. I think one of the funniest things for how we ended up where we are talking on this show from across the world from one another is that in a league we were drafting in, immediately we started talking. After the first couple of rounds, we kind of understood the people we were drafting with, and it led us to here. It's so important to try your hardest not to be the stranger in the league. You'll lose out on so many opportunities. Knowing your league is quite possibly the most important factor in acquiring true value. If you can't read the room, if you can't kind of chameleon in the room,
you can't find the room. This is
exactly. Yeah, exactly. For us, when you're looking at knowing your league, it comes with knowing your roster sizes and really understanding what that's going to do to your draft board. I want to ask you right off the gate, when you're looking at your starting lineup, let's say you're playing in a, what's kind of the standard now. It's we're going to go one tight end because we're not sociopaths that play two tight end leagues, right? That's sociopath behavior.
That's just asking for pain.
Yeah. And
it's challenging. Don't get me wrong. Challenging, interesting, but my God. Yeah, weekly starts are a nightmare.
It is rough when you're playing Luke Wilson in week 13 because everyone else is dead. It's tough.
You're not sure what team Luke Wilson currently plays for.
Yeah,
he's playing.
Exactly. He signed 1 week and it was starting for Baltimore against Pittsburgh. The next and getting red zone targets. That two tight end stuff. That's sociopath behavior. But for us, it's always super flex. And for this example, let's do 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end. Let's go 2 flex. When you're looking at that, how does that change maybe what your ranks are going to be? How does it change when you're identifying what true values will be at the draft in the mid to late rounds? How does knowing your league in and out really matter?
Yeah. So, from a broad point of view, when you're talking starting 9-man rosters, the key is that if this is what we see this as the standard, then value and value conversations should really be based around this setup, right? Whether it's PPR, half PPR, it doesn't really matter too much. But the key is the smaller the roster, the greater that bigger assets are important. Because it's harder to make up a tier gap if you've got 1 player trading down to 2. It's harder to make up that production on field because you don't have an extra slot to put that player into. So as much as you can do, you can acquire extra value, as we talked about previous weeks with different tiers, trading down, adding assets. But if you can't use that asset, it doesn't actually help you acquire true value in that league. So some trade downs, and this is why trade evaluations are so difficult, because without knowing the intricate, the context of what's going on, it's very hard to say whether or not that's a good move. Because if you're not able to get that production on field, then it's just sitting in the team. So this is why we talk about why it's such a hard time in this dead zone in the offseason to understand, what am I doing with my value? How do I start adding pieces to my team if I can't play them? Well, the season's not for another month and a bit, even longer. We're waiting ages until these guys become relevant. So the key here is not knowing and understanding what will become valuable to your team to win the league. But in the meantime, what assets are on the rise? What pieces can you have to actually go out and get the ones that are going to, perform for you on the park? So, in 9-man rosters, active rosters, it's pretty standard. I mean, most people should be basing their asset evaluations and acquisitions on that sort of setup. It's when league sizes change or scoring proposition changes that it really starts to become a bigger issue. And I think people get lost a little bit in the wash. They don't really understand. If you don't change scoring and you add a couple of extra flex spots, well, all of a sudden you've diluted the pool of possible, scoring production at one key position in particular. And we'll talk about that in a second.
Right. And that's where, if you're a trade up kind of guy and you have to fill, a 13, some ludicrous number of starting spots in a super flex league, your trade up strategy just doesn't fit the bill unless it is for that tier jump. And that's where it becomes important. First, scoring, how much do you weigh scoring for? I know people play in tiered scoring for like running backs,
it's
which
becoming
is
more
wild
popular
to me. It obviously you look at, say, Scott Fishbowl settings, it's a little different, but there are leagues that I've been told about. I haven't played because I'm not a sociopath. That running backs get 0.25 points per reception, and tight ends get 0.75, and receivers get a bonus 0.5. That kind of stuff. You can't walk in with the same You can't. You cannot walk into your same base strategy. That's where knowing your league. And if you walk into that league and you walk in with your regular basic Starbucks ass the plan for drafting, you will lose at the draft.
Yeah.
Right. Knowing your league is important. I remember I was in a league. I had completely forgotten what the scoring setting was. We started the league and I was like 2 rounds in, I realized it was half point PPR.
Yep.
And I just went, oh, you got to be joking.
Yeah, Eckler in the second, not looking so good.
I think my issue was Eckler, and I took him in the 3rd or the 4th, and I was like, oh, no. There goes the true value of the pick, half PPR, which is not the same. So you have to know your league. It is the single most important thing when identifying true value. I want to move into actually drafting. Drafting for true value and identifying it. Obviously, do you feel like it matters when you're looking through the value objective filter? I mean, what is value based in your draft strategy? How does it work? The key is to using, ADP and consensus value. Jacob's here. Half PPR is for plebeians. Yeah. It's true. I know. I don't know what I was thinking that day.
Did you say plebeians or plebeians?
Plebeians.
I'm sure Cobb will blame on this.
I think it's plebeians, but he's also smarter than I am. So I don't know.
Wait for his answer on that one. Yeah.
So how do you want to get into team build draft strategy here, Tomlie?
So that's probably one of the things that's thrown around a fair bit is what's your draft strategy? Are you going to do? I think Ray GQ talks productive struggle, right? Really entertaining way to go young and build up and all this sort of stuff. But the sooner you decide on that, the more you're locked in, and the less range there is, the more value that falls for others, right? So for me, it seems somewhat illogical, and then you'll get the fantasy footballers talking stay water, all that sort of stuff. Well, staying water is fine, but if you don't know what you're going to switch to, if you're only thinking in terms of here are 3 different draft strategies, I've got to fall within one of them, you're sort of stuck. What are you going to do with it? So this is where value drafting becomes such an appealing mindset and ideal. You go to build the team you want to build, and if it doesn't fall your way, then you just look to acquire value wherever there is value. You use your nous, you understand your league, where the scoring's going. You're getting a feel. Oh, that's some guy. You're getting a feel. You're getting a feel for what is happening within different teams as well. You can sort of see who's building where. Meaning a member of. Yeah, I know what it is.
He was looking for the enunciation. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so I think that's the key, right? So you're looking at what were we saying? Deciding whether you're going to stick with one draft strategy or acquire for value. You're using themes and trends that you're seeing within the draft to adjust. Going, well, after the draft, this is what's going to happen, right? If one team is hoarding a certain position, or if they're only going for one thing, then the value of those assets is higher to that person. Plebeians. Yeah, okay.
I had it
you
right.
Got me this time, Tom. Yeah. I'll concede. That's fine. I am the plebeian in this situation.
Who's learning slang now?
This is it. Yeah, damn right. Yeah, so I mean, like, that's the key. It allows you to go, well, now I have goals and I have targets that I can sell these assets to at higher rates, rather than just going, this person's valued more in the league in general. So if you get 2 or 3 people buying into one particular draft strategy, let's say like RB heavy, and all of a sudden you're in a super flex league, we're talking, QBs all of a sudden start sliding down the board. Well, I'm not going to go and try to fill my roster up if there's, Ryan Tannehill sitting in the 8th round, whereas he should be gone in the 4th or 5th. Like, I'm taking him, right? I'm taking Baker. I'm taking these guys because I know I've got targets to sell them to, that they can't replace that production. So that's what you're looking for, really, is what is now the highest valued asset based on your understanding of the league and the nous of watching what other teams are doing. Can you make a better educated decision knowing you can get more value on the back end post-draft? That is what value drafting is all about.
Yeah.
And not saying, I think this player's highest value, I'm going to take them here. Trade back to these different tiers. We've got an idea of where value is going to fall to. Go and acquire 2 assets in that same range because you know what you're going to do with them. Yeah. If your plan was to take QB and no one else wants them, trade back a couple of rounds and take.
Yeah, so we got Tomlie over there in Australia. So this can happen, but as Dynasty Vipers is saying, I never make any educated decisions. I mean, yeah, we lost it there for a second there, mate. But again, I explained to the people, being in Australia, that can happen from time to time. But as Dynasty Vipers, the main account here is saying I never make any educated decisions. I sometimes I get told that that's how I am. But for what you were saying, when it comes to your draft strategies being open, identifying what your league. If you see a guy who's starting, he's drafted 5 running backs in a row to a point where he's reaching on that last running back. Like, that's your guy. You're gonna, whether it's week 1, week 2, week 3, you're gonna get him eventually. Yeah. Do you feel like there's an archetype of QB that fits better for the QB hoarding strategy in later rounds? I mean, look, in the later rounds, obviously the Brady's, right? The Bens, etc. Hey, the Brady's, the Bens, the Darnolds. Those are the guys that you're in the later rounds that I do want to hoard them, because everyone's going to look for the. Jacob actually said this the best for me last year, that having one quarterback in a super flex and then trying to acquire one later, you might as well have a piece of paper stapled to your forehead that says, fuck me. Just right on your forehead, staple it, right?
Come ruin my team. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it is. Because there's no such thing as acquiring a cheap QB2 in super flexes post draft. There's no such thing. It's almost impossible. But yeah, you're right. The dual QB threats like Hill and Tebow being a tight end 1 now. Thank you very much for the brand. But you're right.
Getting a dual tight end threat. Yeah.
Right. You want those guys that can have the opportunity to hit ceilings. Like, I'm still drafting Heineke in like the 20th round because Fitzpatrick has never finished like a full season really, except for I think twice. But to answer Jacob's question, those are kind of the guys that you want to target 6, 7, 8, because you know those guys that are drafting 5 running backs, then they'll take 2 wide receivers. They're going to be looking for that Big Ben. I'm going to win a championship with this trash QB. And then I have my draft pick to, trade for a second quarterback later, which is not always the case if you're the one drafting those quarterbacks at the better value and not reaching for like. So if you have, I just want to put an example of this before we move on. If Brady is there in the 7th, you're taking Brady over other players like OBJ and some other players that are in the 7th round.
Brady's a tough one, right? So Brady is a win now piece. So if there's a team that is going like RB heavy, wide receiver heavy, they don't have QBs, but they're looking to win now, then yes, I'd take Brady. If there wasn't, I'd let him go. Because I don't think you're not going to get the flexibility of being able to move him afterwards. If that makes sense. What I'm saying
is the only way QBs are falling that far is if there is one or more person doing that in the league anyway, because
you'll see the
Brady, Tannehill, Stafford, those guys aren't making it to the 6th, 7th round unless there's somebody doing that, thinking that they're going to just get the best value at quarterback later. That's where you have to mainly adjust. How bad is Daniel Jones? I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I hope you have a third option or some draft picks. I would want to rely on that, Husker.
Too, right?
This is what we're talking about, a true value. Is Daniel Jones a true value in your draft, or did you have to reach to get him to fill your roster? That's where he becomes a problem. Yeah. If you drafted him or traded for him to, quote, fill your roster, at that point, I would rather just play Tony Pollard in my super flex spot and just roll with it. Because, right? And Hollywood, you're right. TB12 is the GOAT. We did go over that. But that's where the true value comes in, Huskers. It's about when you got Daniel Jones, was it in the case of being a true value, or did you fill your roster? Because we're very much against that. We did briefly touch on that, but I want to just move to being aware of other teams. Oh, round 7. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's totally fine. Your QB2, you didn't have to trade up for him. Like, I'm targeting guys like Wentz in that range personally over a guy like Daniel Jones. But if Daniel Jones is getting that, like, big breakout hype right now, I mean, hard not to. You're getting Saquon back, and they obviously signed a semi-alpha in Kenny Golladay. Maybe a true alpha, but they drafted Tony, which I get it. It's fun to make fun of him, but they still drafted him pretty high. It's something to be said. I think that's a decent value for him as long as you didn't do it out of panic. Then it's fine. I mean, if you drafted knowing that that's where you were kind of going to go with your value at the pick, totally, absolutely fine. So being aware of other teams' draft strategies, is really important. And then key moves middle of the draft to keep you moving with value. Was able to stack Golladay at least. That's nice. I like that. So, how do you want to going to
fall and take advantage of that? Go and cluster those picks together. Trade back around and pick up a later pick because you sort of see what's going to happen. I was going to say 3 QBs that I'm seeing pretty consistently are Baker, Stafford, and Kirk Cousins in particular, all fall in that same sort of range and round because they're not sexy. No one's really after these guys, right? Yeah. So if they get pushed back because of that and you cluster, 3 or 4 or 5 picks close together and you take all 3, all of a sudden you've changed what the next few rounds look like, right?
Yeah.
So that's a way to take advantage and create your own value is all of a sudden you've made a demand at a value on a position that is now going to be reached for. So that's where you're going to get your Daniel Joneses taken in the 6th and 7th because all of them are gone.
And not being afraid to start the run, not being afraid to start the QB run, not being afraid of the QB run if it happens. All these things should be in your mind already after the 1st, 2nd round. Getting ready for it, how to prepare.
See what people are doing,
and how not to bite on panic in a draft. Having to I got to trade up. This quarterback's going to be gone. I have to trade up. No, you do not. You do not have to do that. Stop that. Like, if you want to trade up with me, yeah, absolutely. You want to be the guy that accepts it. Yeah. You want to be the person that accepts that trade, not the one that reaches out for that trade because you feel like you have to. I want to move to what I feel is the most important part, and that's post-draft identification. Yeah. So if you have gone tight end heavy in the first bit, tight end premiums, or even not, I mean, in standard PPR, Travis Kelce was and Waller were cheat codes, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're looking at positional scarcity. Where did you stack up to the rest of the league? Looking to capitalize on other people's strategies, because that there's always people in the league that they look at their thing and like, oh my god, I got Marvin Jones as a flex player. I need to make a trade after the draft, and you're sitting on those players that you drafted away from the rest of your league. How are you looking at post-draft identification and then approaching it? We're going to get into starting those conversations afterwards. So we can skip that part, but how are you looking to match your value to what other people might be panicking and identifying in the panic?
So, I mean, there's the real obvious ones, right? It's go across every single person's roster and make a note of their roster gaps, or to your assessment, what their roster gaps are, right? It doesn't mean these people have a need or a want to go and fill those roster spots, but at the same time, it gives you an idea of where to start pushing assets to. And if you do acquire them from someone else, where you might be able to send them to afterwards. So you can sort of see where the chess pieces start moving. That's number one. Understand positional scarcity. Is there a higher demand on running backs for some reason in your league? We saw it last year. Running backs not only went early, but all of a sudden had this huge value where you're getting 2 wide receiver 2s for a running back 2. You're going, there's no way. Like, and you look at it now, You wouldn't trade Josh Jacobs for Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, right? You wouldn't get it.
No.
But, last year you were getting that sort of value,
And Jacobs immediately after the draft. Immediately after the draft, somebody's like, oh my God, I need a running back. I'm going to trade. I'm going to trade this first that I kept throughout the draft and get a value like Gaskin or something. Like you see it and people are like, oh, nobody does that. Yes, they do. They do.
You'll see it pop up in the chat. Yeah. And that's what to look for is look for guys saying, oh, I need a running back. Go have a look at their roster. They've got 2 really good running backs and a Myles Gaskin. They panic for no reason. Go and talk to that person. See if they want Mike Davis for a first or like a future, possible hire, whatever it is. Go and have a look and start seeing what's there. That may not just be your general value picks across the board. You're not going to hear about these trades on other podcasts because they're so specific to your league. Exactly. But start looking for that stuff. That's how you win those leagues.
That's a big thing. Not everyone can listen to every podcast.
No.
And not everyone exactly. And no one should be saying like, well, that's how they did it. That's how I'm going to do it. That's how I have to do it. Yeah. It's the only way to do it. You're going to end up with a really big pom-pom if you do it that way. And it's going to be, it's not going to be a great time, honestly. But most people aren't even going to post that kind of stuff in the draft. So when we talked about knowing your league and communicating with them, you should be going and checking in every, 3, 4, 5 rounds on previous conversations. Hey, how are you feeling with this draft right now? Hey, man, dang, even if it's not true, just fabricate a conversation. Man, I was really hoping I really was hoping these wide receivers were going to fall. How are you feeling? And maybe they'll bullshit you, and hopefully they are because they're playing the game. But at the same time, you're opening pre-dialogue for post-draft where you can walk in and go, man, that didn't fall this way, but guess what? I managed to make a move in the draft. I got these players. I think we can make a deal. You've already made that connection verbally in a completely neutral, not low ball. You didn't trade calculator them, in the first sentence. So they're all automatically out of the conversation. Well, my trade calculator says that this for this trade calculator, but I'm going to screenshot this trade calculator that shows that my value wins and you're a moron. You avoided that whole thing by just messaging someone politely. Hey, this draft, it's crazy. Can you believe that all these quarterbacks are going? Mm-hmm. And then, maybe you could get I agree. Like quarterbacks should go this far. This is wild. And you're like, all right, that's a guy. Like you can identify that in conversation. And that's what I want to move to right now. I want to move to conversations. I want to do some examples, a little bit of gameplay here, Tomlie, about
bit of to and fro, a bit of back and forth.
Exactly. Now, a couple of these shits me to tears when it comes to
they're triggering.
Engaging in conversation. And sometimes you just have to let somebody know that you're not here to fuck spiders in trade negotiations. You're just moving forward. Hollywood says I hate trade calculators. We're anti-trade calculators ourselves, but we also
for a reason. Yeah.
Hollywood, if you haven't caught the episode before last week when we talked about this, you don't have to let the other people you're talking about know that you hate trade calculators right away. There is an opportunity to get that trade done with those people. It's just a matter of how you communicate with them and make things move. It can be difficult. Like it can really you got to put your phone down. You just got to click it, find like a video like of cats and kittens and just watch it for a little while. It's just maddening.
Walk the hallway, get your steps up.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Don't want them. Can't win with them. Yeah, I know. Singletary, he really gave us a few good ones. But Tomlie, open this up. Quick examples of conversations that we do not like. How do we not? So basically what's going to happen here is Tomlie is going to open with a conversation, and I'm going to play the other side. I'm going to play us, and Tomlie is going to be the rando here.
Yeah. Now I'm going to over-exaggerate this. Right?
Oh, yeah, I love it. I'll try not to cut a wrestling promo.
Yeah. I'm looking at Tom's team, and I don't know that he's a Ravens fan because I haven't done my research, right? And I'm looking at his team, and I see J.K. Dobbins sitting there, and I go, fantasy footballers are a little bit down on J.K. Dobbins. I'm going to twist that into a narrative that I think he sucks. But I still want J.K. Dobbins for some reason. So I drift on in, hey, Tom, how shit's J.K. Dobbins looking this year? Any interest in, moving this player on towards me? And you're going...
weird name 671. I love Dobbins. I think he's a great player. It would really depend on what you're willing to offer me.
Oh, that's so strange. But what about, Lamar Jackson's going to poach all these goal line touchdowns, and Gus Edwards, the share last year was massive. There's no way he's going to catch passes from the backfield. He can't possibly be worth 4 firsts.
Well, I mean, it's kind of weird to me that you're, willing to put down the player. Like, why would you be, putting down a player that you're looking to acquire? I mean, was my draft bad? Did you not agree? Like, I don't understand.
I hate you. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
And see, and that is an example that happens weekly in fucking leagues across the goddamn way.
I got 2 of those. I literally got 2 of those yesterday.
That has to be number 1, right?
Huskers knows what's up.
Yeah, that's dead set number 1.
I agree.
Yeah,
Huskers knows what's up. He's had that conversation.
He's all over it. Yeah.
All right, what's the next one? Give me the next one.
So just to summarize that one, don't come in and trash my player. I know you want them. It doesn't do you any service. Get the fuck out of here. All right?
Yeah. Oh man, that running back that has so much potential. I just don't think he's gonna do very well for reason. Here's Tyler Boyd in the 3rd.
Yeah, but I can use him, so therefore I'll give you something shit.
Yeah. He'll do great for my team. I'm just gonna do you a favor and cut the dead weight. Get out of here. Yeah. I love Huskers knows exactly.
He's all
what's
over
the next one? What's the next one we don't like?
So I'm only going to do 2 for the ones we don't like. But there's another one where don't go to someone and ask them if they're open to moving someone, and then tell them to offer you a trade.
Oh
right?
God!
Because it shows you've done no legwork. You've just gone, I reckon I can get a value from this idiot, and I'm going to make sure that he offers me the first move because I know he'll sell at a lower value, right?
Oh, I'm going to love this one. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Who will I pick? Oh, hey, man, I noticed you got Zeke sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are you open to moving Zeke? What are your thoughts on Zeke this year?
Okay, Snoochie Boochie's 475. I really appreciate you tuning in on Zeke. I mean, if you're interested in him, what kind of package are you looking to start with him? Obviously, I don't really want to part with a starting running back.
Oh yeah, man. I'm slightly interested. I'm not super convinced. But if you want to send me something, that'd be fantastic. And
yeah, I don't totally understand why I have to send you. I mean, if you're interested, you can send me something. I'll look at it, and if I don't like it, I'll counter.
Yeah, and then I leave you on red for about a week.
Exactly. It'll get
it's fucking going nowhere.
Snoochie Boochies is going to not. I don't know if that's an actual name.
I should not tell everyone my other username.
I don't know. I don't know if somebody has that as a username. I just watched Jay and Silent Bob the other day, so it came to mind when I was coming up with a name. I'm so sorry if that's a real person. Do trade.
And you're a great person. If you're an absolute arsehole, then get fucked.
Oh yeah, get fucked. Yeah, royally. That's an important one, but that's another big one that drives us crazy. I mean, it's so, and it hurts you down the line with people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if they're on the block, right? So if they're on the block, if you are going to somebody else to acquire their player, have anything prepared. Literally anything.
Conversation.
So co-host on the Friday show, the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast, Billy is pretty open about when he starts trade negotiations, he's going to send you rubbish. Like the first trade is literally just him starting conversation. And 1 second. It's literally him just starting conversation, which it is important. And I apologize to no one. We know that's what I love about you. Tennessee needs to apologize to Eric Gray, though, just so you know. RB1 next year. You know what's up. I mean, you're really hurting yourself in future negotiations. If someone's on the trade block, right?
Yeah.
You should still be approaching that player on the trade block with anything, literally anything. Hey, how does this, I know you love to do this one. Hey, I sent you a starter. That way they know. They know
it's not meant to be the one they're meant to take, right?
Right.
If you don't, please know now. If I say the word starter, it's because it's not meant to be taken, but it's meant to reflect the structure of the deal that I hope to achieve with you.
Shit. Yeah, that's right. I know. I couldn't help it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll apologize to you. I'm sorry.
When they apologize, Eric Gray.
I'll see you Friday night, buddy. All right. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's going to lead us to conversations that we do like, Tomlie. What are some of the ones that we do love?
We just mentioned one of them, right? So sending a starter, right? Telling you, hey, look, I'm looking into acquiring a player of yours. I'm really open to your input as well. You're looking to create a mutual beneficial situation for both teams. You're going in with the intent of improving both rosters, knowing in the back of your head that the players you're going to target reflect value in your rankings, right? That's the only difference. You might be slightly higher. We talked about acquiring a tier of value. You're not looking to go in and absolutely blast the person off the park. Now, don't get me wrong, it can lead that way based on your own rankings, because if you've got guys ranked way ahead of consensus and ADP, you can get great value in some of these trades. But you don't go in, true value, you don't go in assuming that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to start talking to this person, going, okay, I've sent you a starter. And then in a secondary DM, send up saying, hey, look, send you a starter. Obviously, you're not going to take it, but I'm interested in the player I've asked for. And I've also sent the structure of the deal I'd like to look at. So it might be a higher running back for a lower running back and a wide receiver on top, right? That's the sort of thing I'm looking for. Feel free to throw some names around. All of a sudden, you end up settling on two players you actually like that it turns out they're slightly lower on, and you get the value on it anyway. But you started with that mutual point of, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Are you interested?
Yep, 100%. I like that one. Any IDP I have. So I've played in one IDP devotion, like it's a devoted to IDP. I have done it. It's a little wild to me. It's kind of sociopath behavior.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate it. And now I'm in multiple leagues where you have 3 IDP flex spots, and it has completely changed. It is fun. I get to track my favorite defensive player. I believe in that league. I have like a Bobby Wagner, Buda Baker. It's really fun to apply that, but I don't personally play in full IDP leagues. I do like the options of having 3 or 4 IDP flex spots because it does open. I know, Hollywood. I know. You know what? You can pitch it to me, and then I'll let you send me an invite if your pitch is successful. Like we're gonna go through another trade pitch. I'll let you convince me. Okay. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just disappointing Hollywood today. Shut it down. No, we gotta go. We gotta cut it. We can't keep. I know. I'm sorry. It'll be okay. Just tell it to Patrick back here. He takes all the HR calls. So Tomlie, what's the next one? Do you got another scenario? What's another trade discussion that we like?
Yeah, so we got the last one, and this one, you can go either way, right? It's, you don't necessarily like it, you don't not like it, but it's going and saying, hey, I noticed that you need this position, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there's a reason it can go both ways. I'm going to play it out, and I want to see what your response is, because you might have
I love this.
What's going on? Send any response to Patrick and make sure that he files.
Yeah, Patrick handles all HR, so take it up with him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the team alpaca.
So we're gonna, the team alpaca. We're going to play it out and just see what your opinion of it is, and it's something we'll probably cover a lot more next week as well when you start getting into the nitty gritty negotiation side of things.
Ooh, yeah.
But here's what we'll go with. So let's get into character here.
I need absolute silence. Before I get into character.
Oh, hey,
absolute silence. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, hey, at Thomas Tipple FF. I noticed.
What's going on?
Yeah. I noticed that you desperately need a running back too. I have Myles Gaskin. We should do a deal together.
You know what? Oh, man, you're right. The draft didn't fall to me that way. I mean, I would be okay with getting a guy like Gaskin, but I don't really like where you drafted him. I think that was a little high for me. If we can make the pieces fit, I'd be definitely interested.
So this can then go one of two ways, right? The way I don't like it going is people getting really butthurt about what you've just said about their player, even though you've just accused me of needing a certain spot on my team. So we'll go with one of those, which is, but Myles Gaskin finished with this opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Here's some stats about how good Myles Gaskin is. And you're going, well, my whole point was I didn't want him.
So here's my reply to that. I didn't want him in the draft. I don't want him at that value now. I passed on him. I understand. And my reply would be, look, I understand your value. He has a great opportunity. but I passed on him in the draft. That's just not my value. Maybe we can make something else work.
Yeah, and that should be a nice mutually agreed upon way to end a negotiation if they're not
Unless they ask you for 2 firsts from Miles Gaskin, you just leave them on red. That's inexcusable behavior. And if that's when the screenshot of the Hollywood, if that's where the screenshot of the trade calculator comes in, you yeet your phone out the window.
You send us a picture of it first and then you eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just send a picture of a shit sandwich and it would probably be pretty close. That's where I find it okay for you to go in on that thing. Because now they've completely ignored your opinion. They've completely ignored their basis, especially when they come to you with the trade offer. Now they've demeaned you twice in a fantasy league, which is another thing. That's where you can kind of get a little cute and clap back, in my opinion. How about straight up hitting the reject button? Rude. Look, man, I mean, it's definitely part of body language, right? So a lot of times, I mean, I know I've hit straight reject on Tomlie just because he knows I think it's hilarious to just ghost somebody afterwards, or if you're on one and, you just know you're reject. That's a whole nother story about
how quick do I hit you with a DM, right? Like it's
instant. It's instant, and it's usually Husker. Let me tell you, if you just hit reject button, how often have you gotten, and you can reply, how often have you gotten the no counter, bro? Like that's not even gonna counter, bro. Like what's that? Like too good? You're too good for me. Yeah. Like are you you're just too good? Like for the converse? Like dude, obviously, and regardless of how trash bag that offer is, there's always one. Exactly. He knows. See, we're connecting here on how to cross these bridges. For me, I don't auto reject no matter what the offer is. Now, I'm a spiteful human. So if the trade offer is bad, and okay. Let's see, we're making connections here. Husker and Hollywood Titan. We're gonna do this up.
Oh, God. So we're gonna be 90p league together soon.
Yeah. So for me, I'm spiteful. There's some players that I play fantasy with. One is the legend himself, Stolp. I hope you're listening, buddy. But sometimes when he sends me an offer, I will deliberately leave it for 5 days, and then I'll straight reject it with no message. Just because he knows that it's a gimmick, right? So knowing your league is fine. I auto reject terrible counters. See, for me, I would, before I auto reject it, I would have this message typed up and I would go, look, we're not going to see eye to eye. Yeah. I think we can come back to this another time, but we're not going to see eye to eye. No, thank you. And then I'm out. Yep. Then I hit the reject. But for my opinion, if you're auto rejecting any trade negotiations, you're going to make it harder on yourself later when you need something. Because if for any reason, if the planets aligned a certain way, if the planet's rotation shifts just that little bit, and you're going to need to go to that one person, it's probably going to be a little more hellish for you, and now you've lost the opportunity to capitalize on something.
And how often does that happen? It's all the time.
All the time. I remember 2019, and I know we like to avoid I did this situation, but in 2019, we're playing a defense. The player really wanted to get a defense. It was a Monday night game. I picked up the San Fran defense, and the fantasy player had, not been super kind in responding to trade negotiations in the past, auto rejecting. I got a second round pick for that defense the next year because they had an opportunity to win. They won that week. It was great. It helped them in the standings, but I was a little more ruthless in that trade negotiation just because the planets did align. The planet's rotation led the situation to me. The moon affected the waves of the ocean, which affected, the plates and shook the ground, and someone blew a knee out. And it came out that I was their only hope. And guess what? I got that second round pick because you left me on red. They auto rejected me a couple times in the season. I never want to be in that situation. I try very hard, and I understand if you do. I totally understand if you auto reject that. That's fine. Yeah. If you go obviously we're not. I should say this. we're not talking about those guys that'll send you, okay, you give me Cam Akers and I'll give you Colin Johnson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, 3 4th-round picks, Tim Tebow, Taylor Heineke, and like, I don't know,
very
Matt
specific
Barkley.
Examples there, Tom.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to talk about why.
Yeah,
I know they're listening and they know. I know they're going to listen and they know. Yeah, I talked about it. At that point, I'm either sending them a completely spiteful one-sided trade the other way, or I'm auto-rejecting and I'm just not going to address it.
Yeah.
I think my kid. So look,
I think the key takeaway from this, Tom, is like, it's not that we're above this either. Like we've had to learn this the hard way. It's nice. Yeah. Like you get in shitty moods sometimes. You want to be the asshole, and it comes back to bite. It always does. Last year had to end up paying a high second because I got it from another team for Phillip Rivers, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I a couple of weeks before trashed Phillip Rivers in the group chat about how shit he is, and I only had 2 quarterbacks, and then Drew Brees got injured.
Remember, when you only roll 2 quarterbacks and one goes down, and you try to acquire one, you might as well have a piece of paper stapled to your forehead that says "kick me." Okay.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I won the league, which is good, but like,
yeah, I know
it still hurts, right? You still this is why value is so important. Is you need value on your team, otherwise you can't then acquire someone, even if you're fighting against the odds. So that's why this matters so much.
And it comes all the way back around with identifying those potential problems after the draft and not waiting. Do it now in the dead. I guarantee acquiring Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be a whole hell of a lot easier now than week 5 when he's just thrown 47 balls to Terry McLaurin in one game because he just felt like YOLOing and yeeting the ball. Okay. It's easier to do now than later. And then you don't want to put yourself in a position where later it becomes impossible. And that's what we want to do. So I think that kind of wraps up part 3 of the Value Accumulation Project. And a lot of it came down to how to approach a draft, how to maneuver within the draft. But the big key to this episode is staying open to communication and not kicking yourself in the ass before you get going. If you shoot yourself in the foot before you get in the door, you don't get in. You're 100% killing your chances. But if you can just, I took my pup to the beach. Yeah, that's the way, Chase. Nothing wrong with that, buddy. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, and that's it. Hey, that's a really good reason to not reply to a trade right away too. Remember that. It's playing every angle. Okay. People love dogs. They're sympathetic to the scenario. All right.
Kids and dogs.
Exactly. It's a great
I haven't either, but my God, did they get in the way?
Yeah. Thanks, Huskers. We appreciate you, man. Well, you're busy fighting off ruse. I mean, that's a completely different scenario. Right. Sorry, mate. Yeah. I couldn't reply to that trade. I had to fight 2 ruse out of my yard. That's a completely reasonable excuse. I just want to mention that I did learn something, Tomlie, when so there's one Jesus. Yeah, we know. So there's one scenario. There's a gentleman I work with, or is an acquaintance to one of our jobs, a client, who is from New Zealand.
Yep.
And I know that it is. People think they're similar, but they're not. So I learned that the difference between how to tell, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, there's you listen to how they say chase, and or chance. It's chance and chance. Am I right? Am I close?
Yeah. There's go-to words. I mean, New Zealand, you get fish instead of fish.
Yeah, so there it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. I love the things.
Yeah, fish and sucks. There's a lot of this sort of talking from New Zealanders and that sort of thing.
Yes, I offended him apparently because I
that's possible.
From Australia, and apparently it was like a big thing.
Yeah.
He's an old timey, so it was
I
like
New Zealanders get more butthurt because they're a smaller nation who's arguably had larger international success than we have. But good for them.
I know I know Russell Crowe's a big deal between the.
Yeah, because we keep taking stuff of theirs. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man.
We're adopters. We were criminals to start with. We're going to take what we can.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how this whole story started.
100%. I just thought that was a cool. That's my contribution to Aussie knowledge this week from a not Aussie. So it's really cool. So breaking down the episode, obviously it comes down to communication. Be open with your communication and be open with your negotiations, and never take yourself out of the opportunity to acquire true value. Tomlie, where can people find you? With my overlay here, I forgot to add the Twitter stuff, so that's on me. So we're going to get you to tell everyone where they can find you if you don't mind.
So it's at Tom_Lee, spelled LIE, 92 on Twitter, or on the Bird app.
On the Bird app. Slide
into our DMs, and you can find us in leagues across Sleeper platforms and other platforms as well.
Exactly.
That'd be cool. Come jump in a league. Come send us an invite and get us going. I'm keen.
Yeah, Hollywood, convince us.
Maybe not that one.
You can get into the DM. You can even tag the Dynasty Tilt on the Bird app. At the end of this project, we are going to help teach somebody how to build their own tiers. If you want some help building your tiers, if you've never done it before, if you want to update yours or maybe find a different process, DM us, leave us a comment. We'll get you down. We're going to draw a name, and we're going to bring someone on and help them break down their tiers. Super excited to be able to do that. And I am your host with the most time on his hands. I'm Thomas Tipple, FF. You can find my work with Fantasy Intervention, and you will see my work with the Dynasty Vipers graphics division. And then you can catch me on Fridays, 6 Central, 7 Eastern time with the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast with my mates at Big Billy FF and at FF_RTDB. The man with no hats versus the man against age. It is a
it's a good time.
It's a really good. Yeah. It's a really fun show, man. And I gotta say, big thank you to the Dynasty Vipers for giving us a chance to come on the network and spend some time with some more people that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so before. So, from me, from my mate across the world, I want to thank everyone for tuning in a little bit later this week. The podcast will be out tomorrow. You can lock that in. Stay safe, have fun, stay kind, and always remember, the most important thing is that clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Good night, everybody. Ciao.